Good morning, everyone, and welcome along to the Blood Red Morning Bulletin, the Liverpool News Daily Show. I'm your host once again for today, Patrick Smith, and I'm joined by Liverpool.com's Dave Comerford. Dave, how's it going?
Good, Pat. Hope you're having a nice morning.
Yeah, I am indeed. And of course, it is Jurgen Klopp's birthday today, coming to you on the 16th of June. Happy birthday, Mr. Klopp. You brought us all some great memories. Let's have a good day on that one. But anyway, let's get straight into the news then, shall we? We'll start with a transfer rumour, as has been the trend for this whole week. A pretty exciting one today, Dave, actually. It's a player many of you probably won't have heard of. It's Keito Nakamura, Japanese left winger, can play an attacking midfield as well. Plays for LASK Linz in Austria. Dave, what can you tell our listeners about the player and viewers about the player? Because I presume most of them won't have heard of him.
Yeah, well, I thankfully wrote a piece about Nakamura earlier this year, and the thing which drew my attention to him was the fact that when PSV lost Cody Gakpo, obviously to Liverpool, he was the player they identified as the desired replacement. Which was quite an interesting one because you've sort of taken Gakpo off PSV and then you're trying to steal the player they want as an actual replacement as well. And also, Liverpool had sent scouts to watch him. I think the Telegraph reported that Brighton as well, which is always a good sign in terms of we know how good they are in terms of finding kind of hidden gems, and they can explode at the Amex, can't they? So that was all kind of quite interesting. In terms of the player himself, I think he ticks all the boxes for Liverpool, except kind of just, experience, really. He is still quite a young player, but in terms of his kind of style, he does look like he could be a Liverpool winger. I mean, he's a goal scorer, but he also creates from wide positions too, and his dribbling as well is excellent. I think he's up there when it comes to sort of dribbles completed in the league, and he's got this sort of it's the style of dribbling, I think, which could be quite transferable to the Premier League. Obviously, when a player's playing in a slightly weaker division, you're a little bit sort of sometimes you question whether they can transfer it, but he's just very agile. He's got excellent close control, and he's quite quick as well, and all of those things, and hopefully kind of like I say, hopefully they're applicable in the Premier League too. So yeah, I think he's sort of got that sort of package you'd want. Obviously, the question is whether you can kind of make the step up. But if Liverpool were to sign a player like Nakamura, then it would be sort of as a backup, certainly initially. I mean, I don't necessarily think they will get another attacker this summer. Maybe it's sort of a long-term target. Maybe it's a player that'll be monitored for a while. But if they did, then I think it would be someone who was under very little pressure and would only be sort of playing minutes in maybe the cup competitions initially with that sort of group of five strong attacking players already in place.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty rogue transfer. It's kind of come out of nowhere because, as you say there, he's definitely a player to be suited to the Premier League. He's quick. He's kind of got the physical attributes. He's really tidy on the ball. But he's a pretty late developer. I know he's still only young. He's turning 23 this summer, but that's not exactly, an 18-year-old youngster. He's only got a couple of Japan caps. I think the second of them came against I think it was El Salvador yesterday or something, coming off the bench. I mean, that's the point there, Dave. He's a left winger predominantly. If Liverpool are going to be signing an attacker as a backup player, do you think it needs to be a left wing, or should they be looking at maybe the right-hand side, or maybe someone who can play down the middle?
Well, I mean, you look at the current group of options, Diaz, Jota, Gakpo, even Nunez. I mean, that's four of the five players can all play on the left. So it does look a little bit sort of it looks a bit unbalanced in that sense. Quite heavy on those players who like to come off the left hand side, and maybe sort of not enough in terms of backup for Mohamed Salah. So perhaps that's the kind of thing that Liverpool should be looking at instead. And like I say, I do wonder with Nakamura whether it is a case of sort of monitoring rather than just kind of going for him immediately, because whether he fits into the immediate short-term picture, I'm not sure, to be honest. But one of the things I said in the article as well, you mentioned how sort of it is a bit of a random transfer rumor, not one that is kind of a particularly established name. I think in some ways that bodes well, because you wonder sometimes with speculation how much of it is genuine. But when you see a name that is a little bit out there, you sort of, in a way, it lends it more credibility because it's unlikely to be one that is sort of just a manufactured link or anything like that. Yeah. And also, the point I made in the article was that, with Brighton being in for them, there was a lot of sort of discussion this year about, do Liverpool need to be kind of getting these players earlier as well? How sort of they were interested in Caicedo, for example, a player who Brighton paid basically pennies for when you consider the amount that he's going for now, getting in there early. And then obviously his value sort of skyrockets. Maybe there's an argument for, not just with Nakamura, it's a more general point, just players in his mould. Maybe there is an argument for getting them early, maybe loaning them out at that point before you kind of allow them to sort of explode onto the scene a little bit and their value rises to sort of 50, 60 million.
Yeah, it's a transfer strategy we've not typically seen really actually under the previous recruitment stuff. Maybe that'll change under George Schmacker. I'm not exactly sure if that's one of his traits, but it's an interesting one to see how it develops. But I think for the meantime, I'd be very surprised if he joined Liverpool. The report, he's heavily linked with Aston Villa, linked with Borussia Dortmund, Lille, Reims, Lyon, Feyenoord. So yeah, I'm not sure that it's one Liverpool will be going for. One of our comments says here, all but Diaz can play in the middle. Salah backup is vital. I mean, for me, if I was going to be signing an attacking player, there's a lot of players in that profile of it. You can play the number 10. They can play out wide if needed to. I'd be looking for more of an out-and-out winger or maybe a backup striker, I think, if we were looking at an attacker. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll see how that develops, as you say, Dave. But let's move on then, shall we, to plenty of midfield targets. I mean, that's going to be the talk of the summer, Liverpool midfield targets. There's 4 of them that have been rumoured with Liverpool playing in the under-21 Euros, which kicks off later this week or next week, I think it is. Let's start then, Dave, with one with Dave. Khephren Thuram first. I mean, he's probably the main transfer rumour of the 4, isn't he? There's reports saying that he's close to a Liverpool move. I think he spoke to L'Equipe as well recently, claiming he'd been seduced by the prospect of joining Liverpool. That's according to French outlet L'Equipe. What do you make of this then, Dave? Do you think we could see Khephren Thuram signing in June, or do you think we'll have to wait till after the under-21 Euros?
Well, we're in an interesting position here, I think, because McAllister's done. That one's been done really early, and maybe in a way that's sort of distorted things a little bit because he arrived even before the transfer window had opened, which I think it only opened like a couple of days ago, didn't it, officially? So you sort of think now if there's a couple of weeks or 2 or 3 weeks delay between the transfers, it feels like Liverpool are dragging their feet a bit, but in reality they were just sort of quite rapid with the Thuram transfer, and it sort of has a bit of a calm before the storm feel at the moment, really. In terms of one deal's done, there might be a couple more in the midfield, but certainly it's a little bit of a lull. I mean, the noises in terms of what's coming out of the club is that Liverpool are looking at the players on their list. There seems to be a list of about 5 players, and they're basically just assessing them. I remember I read that, I think it was James Pearce who reported this, that there's sort of 3 transfer criteria, and it's availability, ability, and affordability, basically. So I think they're basically just applying that test to all the players on the list, and then that'll dictate who they go for. I mean, I reckon, obviously, with, like you say, so many players being at the under-21 Euros, it might cause a little bit of a delay, certainly if players are getting towards the end of that tournament, just because it won't be seen as respectful to kind of try and muscle their way in while the players have got those international commitments. And I suppose that's just the reality of what Liverpool are going to have to deal with. I mean, they made a concerted effort to get McAllister in before he went off on international duty with Argentina, especially with him having that release clause. There was certainly a need to kind of expedite that one a little bit. It was probably asking too much to get a second player through the door before this tournament started. But I think it's interesting as well, just to see all of those players based in that tournament. It's kind of a symbolic representation of what Liverpool's transfer policy is going to be. McAllister, I think the first place through the door is going to be the centerpiece of the midfield rebuild. And the other players are going to be kind of those who fit around him, essentially. And, these aren't, the fact that they aren't fully established internationals, and I know Liverpool don't sign superstars generally, but the fact that they are only under 21 players kind of says to me that the midfield rebuild is taking on sort of a really long-term view, and maybe there's a sense that Liverpool aren't putting too much pressure on themselves to win the Premier League again next season. Maybe they're trying to put the pieces in place for kind of that long-term push. But I just think it's really interesting to see so many players in that same tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Of course, we are speculating, but I really think that they'll sign 2 more midfielders, and I generally think 2 of them will be, one of these 4 players that are playing in the 21 Euros. So yeah, I'm sure loads of Liverpool fans will be tuning in to watch France with. I'd imagine it'll be a Khephren Thuram, Manu Kone midfield pivot, maybe one more in there. But of course, there's Gabi Veiga at Spain and Ryan Gravenberch at Bayern Munich. I mean, I think Liverpool will go for Khephren Thuram. I think he'll be the second signing. But then, Dave, let's say that in a hypothetical scenario, you've got to choose one of the 3, Gabi Veiga, Ryan Gravenberch, or Manu Kone. Who would you choose out of those 3 players? Who do you think would be the best for that Liverpool midfield rebuild?
That's a tricky one, to be honest. I probably would lean towards Kone, just because I think he's probably, most different in terms of what the other 2 signings could offer. And you just want kind of players who can fulfill different roles in the midfield. None of them sort of, I like all of them. None of them kind of, it's not like with McAllister where when the links emerged, I was sort of desperate for Liverpool to sign him. I think this one is a little bit, they're closely matched. I like all 3 players. But I probably would lean towards Kone just because I think he would offer something a little bit sort of different in his profile, maybe being able to fulfill one of the deeper roles, but that certainly remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, maybe longer term he would be better for that sense. But I mean, I'm going to counteract that, Dave. I'd go Gabi Veiga personally. I'd love to see some more goals from midfield, and I think he'd almost guarantee that over the years. Really exciting player, but then I think he's probably, to contradict myself, the least likely to move. I think he'll probably stay in Spain. I'd be very surprised if, he was to move to the Premier League, whereas it's more likely that Kone or Gravenberch might take that chance. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I'm sure we'll all be eagerly watching the under-21 Euros. It's probably the first time I've ever said that in my life, actually. But yeah, it's an interesting one with these Liverpool midfield transfer rumors. Let's see how Khephren Thuram and Manu Kone do get on for France. But yeah, we'll wrap the show up there, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this week. It'll be Ed Kay on hosting duties next week, and they'll be live every weekday from 10 a.m. for the Blood Red Morning Bulletin. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course, check out all the content from our brilliant writers like Dave going up on Liverpool.com. You can catch that on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, Liverpool.com site. So yeah, we'll catch you next week on the Blood Red Morning Bulletin.